Hello, everyone. We're talking with Dr. Benyamin Poghosyan. Welcome back, Benyamin.
Hello,
Hello,
Asbed.
Benjamin. Welcome back.
Hello, Hovik. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So, in the past 2 weeks since our last week in review show, the state of Armenian-Azerbaijani negotiations appear to go up and down by the day. At this point, it's clear that Aliyev thinks he's gotten the maximum out of Western mediation, so now he's trying to shift the negotiations either to a direct format with Armenia or one mediated through some regional player. This past week, Armenia forwarded its latest draft proposal in the talks and indicated it is willing to continue negotiating with Azerbaijan. So Deputy Prime Ministers Meher Grigoryan and Shahin Mustafayev met on the border, actually in the Kazakh and Ijevan districts, for discussions on border delimitation. So what does the latest Armenian draft proposal contain, and where do negotiations stand currently, Benjamin?
Okay, challenging questions as always, but where are negotiations now? My core understanding is that now, after closing the Nagorno-Karabakh chapter by force, Azerbaijan does not need any peace agreement. So the problems where to negotiate, should negotiations resume in Western platforms, in Moscow, in Georgia, or in Armenia-Azerbaijan border, these are important questions, and I will try to touch them upon also. But the core issue is that Azerbaijan was interested to sign a peace agreement to close the Nagorno-Karabakh chapter, to have a paper with Armenian signature telling that Armenia recognizes Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan, that Armenia does not demand an autonomy for Nagorno-Karabakh, to use this sheet of paper as a prevention for Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians any effort in the future to claim independence or higher autonomy or whatever. And for reaching this goal, Azerbaijan was ready to turn blind eye on some contested issues with Armenia. But now, as Azerbaijan finished with Nagorno-Karabakh by force, Azerbaijan has no factor which contributes to quick signature of peace agreement. Now, Azerbaijan tells that, okay, I finished Nagorno-Karabakh issue by force, and now we have Armenia chapter. But to finish Armenia chapter, we have significant disagreements. So as far as there are no solution to these disagreements, peace agreement cannot be signed. And there are several of these disagreements, but the core, even not, are the fact of disagreements between Armenia and Azerbaijan. My understanding is that when Ilham Aliyev came to power in 2003, inherited power from his father, he needed some unifying idea which would rally the society along this new leader and which convince society to turn blind eye on huge problems in Azerbaijan. I mean, inequality, when few people earn billions, when millions are living in poverty or even in extreme poverty, on the lack of fundamental freedoms, etc., etc. So somehow Aliyev offered a deal to Azerbaijani society. Look, you are tolerating my rule, and I am promising you that Azerbaijani flag again will be in Nagorno-Karabakh, and Azerbaijani flag again will be in Shushi. So back in 2003, of course, the idea that Azerbaijani flag will be in Shushi or in Nagorno-Karabakh seemed more like a fantasy. But this was an idea which unified significant part of Azerbaijani society, because due to propaganda, falsification, and etc., significant majority of Azerbaijanis were sure that Shushi is a cradle of Azerbaijani culture or civilization or whatever. And this was an idea that people said, okay, we will tolerate many things by ruling family, but we hope that ruling family will realize its promise. We will see Azerbaijani flag in Shushi. And that is why when Second Nagorno-Karabakh war ended in November 9, 2020, absolute majority of Azerbaijanis, really, they were celebrating in the streets, regardless of their social status. Are they millionaires or are they people with only $100 per month salary? Regardless of their education level, are they people with Western university degrees or people only with Azerbaijani high school diploma? It was a huge celebration because President Aliyev realized the Azerbaijani dream. So the deal was fulfilled. And after 3 years later, in 2023, the deal was fulfilled fully. Also, I have to say that, for example, if you compare the reaction of Azerbaijani society to the Azerbaijani flag in Shushi and Azerbaijani flag in Stepanakert, the reaction which was much more muted when Azerbaijani flag was raised in Stepanakert or when President Aliyev reviewed the military parades there on October 15. But in any case, society said, okay, thank you, Mr. Aliyev. You offered us a deal. We rallied through this idea that you will bring Azerbaijani flags back to Nagorno-Karabakh and especially into Shushi. Thank you very much. You're our hero. But the issue is that President Aliyev cannot exploit this victory for another 20 years because, yes, deal is fulfilled, but the idea also has gone. Like now there is no unifying idea to again tell society, look, yes, millions of Azerbaijanis are living in extreme poverty, there are no freedoms, many people are in jails, etc., but we have a dream, we have a national idea, and we have to reach it.
Well, would you say that he is now trying to rally Azerbaijanis against Armenia at this point? When you said that he's opening an Armenian chapter, is he trying to form a base for Azerbaijani society to come together so that they take over Armenia or some parts of it?
What is my understanding that now we are witnessing the process, the beginning of the process of transformation of this concept of Western Azerbaijan into another unifying idea, which will rally Azerbaijani society again around this ruling family. Of course, it's not very clear yet, even for Azerbaijanis themselves, what the concept of Western Azerbaijan means. Does it mean that there should be Azerbaijani flags in cities of Armenia, including Yerevan, for example, like now we have Azerbaijani flags in Shushi or Stepanakert? Or does it mean that simply Azerbaijani should come to Armenia, the so-called Great Return, like they should live in Armenia as an Armenian citizens, but with all their rights protected, including rights of education, school education, university education in Azerbaijani language, right of religious freedom, including mosques, etc. So there is a lack of clarity again what the concept of Western Azerbaijan is, but yes, now President Aliyev is in the early stage of formulating another unifying idea, another dream. And what he's telling to Azerbaijani society is telling, look, you tolerated my rule for 20 years, but I realized our national dream, Azerbaijani flag, is in Shushi and in other Nagorno-Karabakh towns. Now tolerate my rule or the rule of my family. It will be, I don't know, her daughters, her son, or whatever from her family, his wife, another 20 years. And I promise you, then we will have our next dream realized. But he really needs the idea which will unify Azerbaijani society, as the idea of Azerbaijani flag in Shushi unified them. And my understanding is that now Azerbaijan has two options. One option of this unifying idea could be Armenia, or the concept of Western Azerbaijan, that part of Armenia or entire Armenia was part of Azerbaijan, and again, either it should be part of Azerbaijan legally, like Azerbaijani flags, or at least hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis should go back to Armenia, the idea of this great return. This is option number one. But option number two, also the concept of Southern Azerbaijan with center of Tabriz could be unifying idea. Like Aliyev can say, okay, now in the next 20 years, our unifying idea should be the liberation of 20 or 25 million Azerbaijanis living in bordering regions of Iran, in northern Iran, or in southern Azerbaijan, as they are calling. And in this case, the idea or the dream that Azerbaijani flag should be raised in Tabriz, like 20 years from now in 2043, can serve another unifying idea. But I believe that at the end of the day, the choice of President Aliyev or the ruling family will be the Western Armenia. Why? Because if they will openly circulate the idea, the dream that, okay, in 2043, our dream is like southern Azerbaijan or northern Iran is part of Azerbaijan and Azerbaijani flags there, it will mean direct confrontation with Iran. While Azerbaijani leadership is smart enough to understand that Iran is very, very powerful country. It's much, much stronger than Azerbaijan. Of course, Israel and probably United States would be happy to see this southern Azerbaijan or Azerbaijani flag in Tabriz as a unifying idea, because then they could use this as a bargaining chip or as a leverage against Iran. But this will have may have catastrophic implications for Azerbaijan. While in case of Armenia, if Iran is much stronger than Azerbaijan, Unfortunately, Azerbaijan is much stronger than Armenia. So if they will choose, like the next idea is Western Azerbaijan, like Azerbaijani flags in Armenia, or at least hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis in Armenia as a unifying idea for next 20 years, this makes much more sense than to speak about Tabriz. If the concept of Western Azerbaijan is going to become another unifying idea for Azerbaijani society to rally around ruling family, and this is very, very important for a ruling family, because at the end of the day, number one top priority for them is to keep power, then everything else. In this case, any peace deal with Armenia, even best peace deal for Azerbaijan, I mean best peace deal, like Armenia giving enclaves, Armenia giving land access to enclaves, making them not an enclaves, even Armenia give de facto extraterritorial corridor to Azerbaijan to connect with Nakhichevan via Sunik. But if there is a peace deal effectively kills the idea of Western Azerbaijan, that Azerbaijani flags will be in Armenia, or one day Azerbaijanis will live in Armenia.
So in this context, Benyamin, how does last week's border meeting fit in the vacuum of negotiations that we've seen since Grenada? Why did they have a border delimitation meeting?
My understanding is that this meeting was about ticking boxes. Of course, I don't know what they spoke behind the closed doors, but if you look into the press statement, the result of the meeting is nothing. Like they agreed to finalize the modalities of working conditions or charter of these commissions. Like, I think the meeting was about nothing. Just Azerbaijan offered something, and probably Armenia was afraid of that. Okay, we are rejecting meeting in a Russian platform. Effectively, we do not want to negotiate face to face in Georgia. I mean, at the leaders level, for whatever reasons, but we can discuss also reasons why Armenia does not want face to face negotiations without mediators, either in Georgia as a platform or on Armenia-Azerbaijan border. So I think Armenia simply offered these suggestions to show that, yes, I am not closing the window of negotiations, but these negotiations, they were about nothing, and they will give nothing.
Is the issue of the so-called enclaves still salient in the negotiations?
Okay, Azerbaijani position, as far as I understand, it's this, like, if we forget what we discussed, is that in theory, Azerbaijan maybe does not want any peace agreement, but this is a strategic level, like thought. In tactical level, of course, they should be part of negotiations, but definitely now what Azerbaijan demands from Armenia is a significant part of this peace agreement. First, this is issue of enclaves, these 8 villages, as Azerbaijanis are telling, with 109 square kilometer. But again, they don't want only enclaves. They also want land access to these enclaves. They say that these enclaves should not be enclaves inside Armenia. Like, you should not only give enclaves, but also you should give additional land, like between Armenia-Azerbaijan border and enclave. So Azerbaijan should have land access to these enclaves, and these enclaves should cease to be as an enclave. Of course, this is one of the Azerbaijani demands. Give us back 8 villages, and also give us land access to these 8 villages. Definitely, they are part of Azerbaijani thinking.
So, regarding the negotiations and mediation specifically, Azerbaijan has now excluded both France and the US from acting as mediators, at least verbally. There have been more direct remarks from the EU and US diplomats that point to Azerbaijan and blame it for not keeping its end of the bargain, while Azerbaijan continues to ignore their advances and in fact push back, because we know, for instance, at a high level, both US and Azerbaijan rejected high-level diplomatic meetings until the issue is ironed out, till the issue of Artsakh is ironed out, and so forth. At a glance, this would put Azerbaijan now in Russia's camp, because Azerbaijan is now making strong pro-Russian statements and appears to toe the line, pro-Russia's line in terms of politics or geopolitics. What is Azerbaijan's current strategy? Is Aliyev actually interested in signing an agreement, like you said, that Pashinyan would call it a peace deal and sell it to his people?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, in strategic level, I don't believe Azerbaijan is interested to sign any peace deal with Armenia. On tactical level, while Azerbaijan understands that negotiations at the end of the day should continue, let's not forget that negotiations and the peace deal are completely different things. On the OSCE Minsk group, negotiations were underway for more than 20 years without any peace agreement. But even for resumption of negotiations, what now Azerbaijan is doing They are hinting that, look, guys, resumption of negotiations in Western platforms will irritate more and more both Russia and Iran. And at the end of the day, even any deal is going to be signed, the signature of peace deal in Western platforms, Brussels, Washington, Vienna, Geneva, or any Western capital, this will really piss off Russia and definitely will not make Iran happier. So what Azerbaijan is telling, they are telling to Armenia also that, look, guys, I know one thing, both Russia and Iran, they are strong players in South Caucasus now, and they will be strong players in South Caucasus in the foreseeable future. So I don't want to have problems with strong players in South Caucasus. That is why now I don't want to resume negotiations in Western platforms, and definitely I will never sign any peace agreement in Western platforms. If Armenia wants to irritate Russia and Iran, Azerbaijan tells this is Armenia's business. Okay, if you really would like to irritate Russia, if you would like to irritate Iran, do that. And we are happy. We will take our popcorn and see how you are irritating Russia and how Russia responds, how you are irritating Iran and Iran responds. But please, we have zero intention to have problems with the two powerful players in our region. So if you want to negotiate, again, at the strategic level, Azerbaijan don't want to sign peace agreement. And again, negotiations can take another 10 years without any peace agreement. But even for negotiations, even for like negotiations for negotiations, let's put this way, Azerbaijan tells, okay, I don't want to irritate Russia and Iran. If negotiations are about only negotiations, and we all understand that more probably there is a no peace deal, then why negotiate for negotiations in Western platform and put Russia and Iran against Azerbaijan? Let's negotiate for negotiations in Moscow, and I'm okay with that.
There have also been some veiled threats on the part of the West, or at least the US. For example, the US was saying that, I believe during a testimony in Congress, that they are developing a record of what happened in Artsakh, as if, all of the audiovisual record live feeds were not enough. At the same time, I think the US warned Azerbaijan not to implement the alternative to the Zangezur corridor, or what they would call the Zangezur corridor. Basically, instead of going through Armenia, they warned Azerbaijan not to go ahead with a rail link through Azerbaijan to connect to Nakhichevan. What do you make of this? Is this a diplomatic way of telling Aliyev that the US knows that, for instance, they committed genocide in Artsakh, and they would use that more as a card to pressure it in the future? And also the statements on the rail link through Iran are interesting. What is your assessment of the current state of the West, relations with Azerbaijan? And are they different than the US relations with Azerbaijan? Now, can we separate EU-Azerbaijan relations from the West, overall the West relationship with Azerbaijan?
On US-Azerbaijan relations, my understanding is that US is not angry against Azerbaijan for what Azerbaijan did in Nagorno-Karabakh in September 2023. The US is angry against Azerbaijan because after doing that, Azerbaijan did not move forward to sign peace agreement with Armenia. Because from US perspective, the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan will pave the way for Armenia-Turkey normalization. And after Armenia-Azerbaijan and Armenia-Turkey normalization, Armenia will be able to make real steps to move away from Russia. Not symbolic gestures, as we see now, or rhetoric, but real steps. And from United States perspective, the key is to decrease Russian presence in South Caucasus. And in this regard, they understand that the cornerstone of Russian presence is Armenia, where Russia has military base, border troops, and etc., etc. So, as I see, they hoped that after Azerbaijan will finish with Nagorno-Karabakh, then very quickly, Armenia and Azerbaijan will sign peace deals, then Armenia-Turkey normalization, and then Armenia starting to pull away from Russia, so everyone is happy. We will have a more secure and more prosperous, more Western-inclined South Caucasus with less Russian, less Iran. And probably that is why, while publicly warning Azerbaijan not to use force against Nagorno-Karabakh, as Yuri Kim did on September 14, during the hearings at Senate Foreign Relations Committee, in reality, the United States did nothing immediately after Azerbaijani attack. The only thing which US did, the US sent Samantha Power to Armenia, who came and promised some $11 million of support, which means approximately $100 per refugee. But then, when Americans understood that Azerbaijan is not going to sign peace agreement, and for Americans, they are not interested for whatever reasons, because the reason, as I said, Azerbaijan or President Aliyev needs the Western Azerbaijan concept to rally society around himself for another 20 years, or maybe there are other reasons. But if there is no Armenia-Azerbaijan peace deal, then there is no Armenian-Turkey normalization, then all this concept of making region the place with less Russia and less Iran is going down. That is why Americans are angry against Azerbaijan, and somehow they are confused. The same is for Europeans. Europeans are also confused because immediately after Azerbaijani military takeover of Nagorno-Karabakh, there was a feeling in Europe that a triumph of peace or era of peace is very close to the South Caucasus, that Pashinyan and Aliyev will sign a roadmap in Granada, October 5, and this will pave the way for the final signature of peace agreement either in Washington or in Brussels by the end of 2023. But now everybody understands that this is not going to happen because first, Azerbaijan is not interested to sign peace agreement at all. And second, as I mentioned, Azerbaijan says, I will resume negotiations not on Western platforms because I don't want to piss off Russia and I don't want to have additional problems with Iran. Azerbaijan is telling my problems with Iran caused by strong Azerbaijan-Israel partnership is enough for me. So now the United States and the European Union are somehow confused. My understanding is that the US looked through this process purely through geopolitical lenses as number one issue for United States. South Caucasus with less Russia and less Iran. And if we need no Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh for reaching that goal, that strategic goal, yes, it's a tragedy, but the world history is full of tragedies. At the end of the day, the EU and the United States will send some money to Armenia to integrate these refugees. Some will go to Russia, some even will go to Europe or United States. I mean, refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh. And at the end of the day, sooner or later, these people will be forgotten. But strategically, we have completely new situation in South Caucasus region with less Russian, less Iran. Now, this was a pure US perception. For the European Union, I'm not sure that EU looks through this only through geopolitics, like let's do everything to decrease Russian influence. EU's perception was, okay, let's do everything to reach peace, to have a stable, prosperous region, because South Caucasus is becoming more and more important for Europe and not for Azerbaijani oil and gas, because Azerbaijan has not such amount of oil and gas, but for this potential of middle corridor, like linking Europe with China, circumventing Russia. This China, Kazakhstan, Caspian Sea, South Caucasus, Turkey, Europe, or China, Kazakhstan, Caspian Sea, South Caucasus, Georgia, Black Sea, Europe route. And that is why Europe is interested in stability in South Caucasus. And again, Europe thought that, okay, we would be happy if President Aliyev would provide some rights for Armenians, and Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh will become Azerbaijani citizens and will live happily. But if even this is not going to happen, at the end of the day, if we will have a secure region with Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement and Armenian-Turkey normalization, then yes, we will provide support to Armenia, like we will compensate the loss of Nagorno-Karabakh by, I don't know, additional funding, additional investment, visa liberalization, or whatever. Now, the United States and the European Union are confused and they are angry against Azerbaijan. But does it mean that they will punish Azerbaijan? At least their European Union vision is this. Azerbaijan did very bad things. Azerbaijan cheated us. Azerbaijan tricked us. Azerbaijan promised us in as late as September 2023 that it would not attack Nagorno-Karabakh. He broke its promises, but as a response to this very bad behavior of Azerbaijan, we will not punish Azerbaijan. We will support Armenia. And we see that in recent days, several high-level delegations visited Armenia. We see the visit of EU residents, EU non-residents ambassadors who met with Minister of Foreign Affairs, with Prime Ministers, and we have this fact-finding mission of EU, which visited Armenia November 27, 29, with people from DG NEAR, European Commission, and European External Action Service. So this is EU perception.
Right.
We are confused. Azerbaijan behaved badly. Azerbaijan tricked us, or Azerbaijan fooled us, frankly speaking. But we will not punish Azerbaijan because, first of all, President Aliyev still has few good friends, both in Brussels and in some other European capitals, who will veto any re-election against Azerbaijan. But at least as a compensation for Armenia, let's increase support for Armenia. Like in this fact-finding mission, we have people from EBRD, from European Investment Bank, and etc., etc. United States, of course, US is much more geopolitical power, and US still thinks, I believe, that they are able to somehow convince or force President Aliyev that, okay, you got what did you want? Like, guy, in 2003, you couldn't even dream that you would review military parade in Stepanakert without any Armenians. Even after 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, this seemed like a fantasy because the Russians were there and nobody could think that Azerbaijan will attack, Azerbaijan will kill 6 Russian peacekeepers and nothing will happen. Of course, war in Ukraine changed many things, but at the end of the day, Americans are telling Aliyev, look, guy, after 20 years of your presidency, you got what you even couldn't dream in 2003. So please stop playing with us. Sign this peace agreement, allow Armenia-Turkey normalization, and allow Pashinyan to take real steps to say goodbye to Russia. But are they able? And what can I do against Azerbaijan? Frankly speaking, I don't believe that they will put personal sanctions on President Aliyev like they did, for example, against Maduro on Venezuela, or they will not put sanctions against Azerbaijani main economic sectors.
Why not, Benyamin? Why can't they?
Okay, because then a question arises. If they are putting these sanctions, they automatically transform Azerbaijan into enemy of the United States.
Yeah, it'll become a rogue state.
I'm not sure about rogue state because Europe is still buying the oil and gas. But let's not forget that still Azerbaijan is important for the United States. Even there are a few reasons. Reason number one, Azerbaijan has several hundred land border with Iran. And I said earlier that there are this 25 million Azeri-speaking population in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely all these ideas of Southern Azerbaijan, separatism, or etc., these are important part of puzzles in this US, Iran, Israel, very complicated or complex relationship. A second,
Right.
Azerbaijan is also the connecting point between Europe and Central Asia. It's not only between Europe and China, but also between Europe and Central Asia. Like Azerbaijan, Caspian Sea, and then we see Central Asia. And we see that how much the EU and the US are increasing their participation or their involvement in Central Asia.
Well, I understand their importance to
China
I understand
and
their
Russia.
importance to the EU and the US, but why can't they go for some kind of a program of regime change, get rid of the Aliyevs and bring a democracy? They've talked about a lot of democracy in Armenia. Why haven't they talked about any kind of a democracy in Azerbaijan? Change the regime and install some kind of a people-driven government there.
Because only Armenians would fall for that, Asbed.
I completely understand, but this is complete hypocrisy on the part of the West, which is being abused by Azerbaijan.
First, I don't believe that the US has a real possibilities now to make something in Azerbaijan, because let's not forget that when United States are trying to do regime change or color revolutions or whatever, they are using what? They are using these American funds, these civil society organizations, NGOs, and which are they working with them for years and years, for decades, creating some sort of loyal people. But in Azerbaijan, especially after 2013, 2014, when there was a huge crackdown on civil society, there is no civil society in Azerbaijan. Almost all foundations, Western foundations who are giving grants to different civil societies for democracy promotion, freedom of speech, or etc., they all are banned in Azerbaijan. So first of all, technically, I don't think how the United States can organize a regime change or color revolution in Azerbaijan. Second, this will take years, even if they decide it. Third, if they decide it, it will simply push Azerbaijan closer to Iran, to Russia. Because, okay, if US telling President Aliyev, I will kick you out, then President Aliyev probably will knock President Putin's door much louder, telling that, okay, guys, look, these Americans now want me to kick me out, so I will fully support you.
So let's talk about you mentioned Iran and Russia a few times. To summarize, you're saying, if I understand correctly, that the US wants Russia out and it views Azerbaijan as an important player in that. The US also wants to isolate Iran, for which Azerbaijan is also important, which means that in reality, the US cannot afford, even if it wanted to, probably even if it could, to get rid of Aliyev or alienate Azerbaijan. Are Russia and Iran doing anything to affect this formula? For instance, currently, have they changed their positioning or political stance in regard to Artsakh, in regard to Armenia, in Azerbaijan relations?
Okay, from Russian perspective, I think Russians are quite happy that Azerbaijan stopped this triumph of Western-led peace efforts in South Caucasus. Definitely, if a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan is going to be signed in any Western capital, Brussels, Washington, Vienna, Geneva, or whatever else, this would be a huge blow to Russia because it will clear sign that Russia is not the number one player in South Caucasus. This will be very bad for Russia. I think even this, we may call it, will be humiliation for Russia. So while Armenia is on a daily basis telling that I'm ready to go to Brussels and sign peace agreement, I'm ready to go to Washington, sign peace agreement, I want more EU in Armenia, I want more US in Armenia, I think in Moscow people are simply happy that President Aliyev is telling, no, I'm not going neither to resume negotiations in Western platforms or even for ticking a box. Maybe I will meet Pashinyan in Brussels somewhere in 2024. Definitely, this will be no breakthrough. This will be meeting for meeting, and definitely no peace agreement will be signed in Western platforms. This definitely makes Russia happier. From Iranian perspective, of course, Iran-Azerbaijan relations are complex and complicated due to Azerbaijan-Israel strategic partnership and due to the fact that Azerbaijan gave a green light for all kind of Israeli special services, military intelligence, foreign intelligence, or whatever else to operate in the territory of Azerbaijan against Iran. But also Iran understands that Azerbaijan is becoming, I would say Azerbaijan is now on the path to become a regional hegemon. And Iranians are thinking that, okay, like direct confrontation with Azerbaijan is not good for us. And let's not forget that Azerbaijan is also connecting point for Russia and Iran, because Azerbaijan has land borders both with Russia and with Iran. Azerbaijan, since Soviet time, has a railway connection with Russia. This railway reaches to Azerbaijan-Iran border, and only there is this missing part of 160-kilometer Rasht-Astara inside Iran. And now Russia and Iran signed an agreement, and Russia will provide up to $2 billion of money to construct this missing part, which will be finished somewhere in 2027, I believe. And then Azerbaijan will play a significant role to create a direct rail connection between Russia and Iran. And giving these changes in global geopolitics, like emergence of more multipolar world when Russia, China, and Iran are definitely not in a Western camp, Azerbaijan is also important for Russia and Iran for this, because it provides, again, direct highway and railway connection between Russia and Iran, and also allow Russia to reach Iranian Persian Gulf ports, and from Iranian Persian Gulf ports to reach India, Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries, and etc. So from all this perspective, even Iran, definitely they are absolutely not happy with Azerbaijani foreign policy, but also they are not interested to alienate Azerbaijan fully.
Yeah.
So in this perspective, Russia is happy what Azerbaijan is doing regarding Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiations. And Iran is happy because when, look, in last 1 month, President Aliyev, his foreign policy advisor, Hikmet Hajiyev, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ceyhun Bayramov, they several times reiterated precisely the words of Iranian officials that extra-regional states, the United States and the European Union, they will not solve any problems in South Caucasus. They only will bring instability and chaos to the region. Regional powers should solve regional problems, and in this context, this 3+2 platform is the best way to deal with regional conflicts. This is almost 100% the same wording as we hear from Iranians both before the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War of 2020 and also after the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War.
So, Benyamin, with all these agreements between Iran and Azerbaijan, Aliyev has recently said that he has no further interest in the so-called Zangezur corridor. But Turkey continues to demand that Armenia open a Zangezur corridor. Meanwhile, Pashinyan's team is telling everyone who listen about his so-called Crossroads of Peace plan. It's basically a number of roads crossing Armenia and connecting Azerbaijan with Turkey. And Pashinyan has also complained that the plan is stalled because Aliyev is not interested in it. I personally see this plan as Pashinyan socializing and legitimizing Aliyev's corridor through Armenia to the people of Armenia. So is this a new and original idea, or is it old wine in a new bottle?
First of all, I think no one believes that Azerbaijan and Turkey stop their dream to be connected via Armenia. This dream emerged in 1918, immediately after the establishment of Azerbaijan Republic. again in 1918, immediately after the establishment of Azerbaijan Republic, 1 year after the collapse of Russian Empire. The dream or the vision emerged that Ottoman Turkey will have land connection with Republic of Azerbaijan. Then, of course, Azerbaijan was Sovietized, then became part of Soviet Union. Then, after Second World War, Turkey joined NATO, and this dream had zero chances to be implemented because, okay, it means Third World War or NATO, Soviet Union war. But dream was there. But people understand, probably both in Ankara and probably also in Baku, that as far as there is a Soviet Union, there is a NATO and Turkey part of NATO, there are simply no ways to connect Turkey with Azerbaijan. Then, in 1991, Soviet Union collapsed, and Turkey and Azerbaijan understood that the possibility to make this dream becoming a reality is higher again, or the possibility is increasing again. But then we had the first Nagorno-Karabakh war, and as a result of Armenian victory in this first Nagorno-Karabakh war, the distance between Azerbaijan and Turkey became some 220 kilometers. I mean, the distance between line of contact between Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and Azerbaijan and border with Nakhichevan. And now, as a result of Second Nagorno-Karabakh War and as a result of September 2023 military takeover of Artsakh by Azerbaijan, probably first time since 1918, Azerbaijan and Turkey are this close to realize their dream. Because in the narrowest point, which in the Vyodzo region, I believe, the Azerbaijani troops, the distance which separates Azerbaijani troops near Jermuk from Armenian-Azerbaijan border is less than 30 kilometers, while in Sunik, it's like 40 kilometer, 42 kilometer. So it will be very, very strange if after 105 years of strategic vision to have a land connection between Turkey and Azerbaijan now, when Azerbaijan and Turkey are so close to realize their dream. Again, the narrowest point is less than 30 kilometers. We understand what does it mean 30 kilometer.
So why would he say that he's not interested in the corridor? Is it just a bluff or a way of putting the next move in Pashinyan's court?
I think it's a bluff or trick or maybe something else. But again, no one with basic understanding of history and geopolitics can convince me or even can believe himself that again, after now, when Azerbaijan and Turkey are so close to realize their 105 years old dream, suddenly, for whatever reason, they will say, no, guys, we are very close to do that, but after 105 years of dreams and strategic vision, now we say, no, we don't like that. Of course, Azerbaijan was connected with Nakhichevan via Iran starting from 1993. Yes, there was no railway, but they were highways. So every day, people took bus from Baku, then go to the south, enter Iranian territory, drive several hundred kilometers through Iranian territory, and enter Nakhichevan. Of course, now this road will be reduced because now there is no need to enter Iran closer to the Caspian Sea. Now, after taking back the territories of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, you can drive from Baku up to Azerbaijan-Armenia border, then enter the Iranian territory, drive these 40-50 kilometers, and then enter Nakhichevan. Mm-hmm. And also, you can have railway connection with Nakhichevan also via Iran. We know that Azerbaijan is constructing railway, which again in summer 2024 will reach Armenia-Azerbaijan border, and then why not? They can construct this railway bridge. A railway can enter Iranian territory, pass 40-50 kilometers via Iran, and then with another railway bridge enter Nakhichevan. This is possible, and this simply will mean a more secure rail connection between Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan via Iran. But this has nothing to do with this 105-year-old Turkish and Azerbaijani strategic dream to have a direct connection. And Turkey and Azerbaijan cannot have direct connection with Iran because first, Iran is quite powerful country. Second, you will need to take like 100 kilometers. And the same for Georgia. Turkey and Azerbaijan cannot have direct land connection via Georgia. I'm not speaking about transit, I'm speaking about land connection, because in that case, Turkey should start taking Georgian territory from Batumi and then reach Georgia-Azerbaijan border, which is again several hundred kilometers, if not 500 or 600 kilometers.
Right. Regarding Turkey, Turkey's attention is currently focused on Gaza and Israel, with Erdogan, at least in words, backing the Palestinians and definitely not making friends with the US and also irritating NATO. Is this the case? And how is it affecting its involvement in the South Caucasus?
Yes, at least verbally, Turkey supports Hamas. Erdogan rejected to recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization. He accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of being a terrorist. He stated that Israel is a terrorist state. I believe even Turkish lawyers applied to the International Criminal Court to open a criminal investigation against Prime Minister Netanyahu. And yes, still there are problems with NATO because Turkish parliament still has not ratified the Sweden membership into NATO. And of course, this also connected with the sale of modernized F-16 jets to Turkey. But apparently here is also not everything is good because 2 weeks ago, Erdogan went to Germany and he negotiated with Chancellor Scholz, trying to get Germany's approval for buying these Eurofighter Typhoons instead of F-16. Then he did not get any result. At the end of the day, he went to UK and Turkey and UK signed a strategic partnership agreement on defense issues. And now there are discussions that maybe somehow United Kingdom will convince other European countries to sell these Eurofighter Typhoon military jets to Turkey. But the fact that now Turkey is negotiating with Germany and United Kingdom for these Eurofighter jets, it means that there are more and more doubts in Turkey that they will be able to receive these modernized F-16s, which itself means that if there is no F-16s, that probably why Turkey should ratify Sweden membership into NATO. But this itself means that problems with NATO will continue. How will this affect Turkey's South Caucasian policy? I think as I mentioned, from the United States point of view, the key in the South Caucasus is it's very basic. Keep Russia down and Iran out. If we would like one sentence explanation of US foreign policy in South Caucasus, it's let's bring West in, put Russia down, and Iran out. And from this perspective, US needs Armenia-Turkey normalization. Because if there is no Armenia-Turkey normalization, it's very complicated to keep Russia down. Because to keep Russia down, you need to decrease Russian presence in Armenia. But as far as there are no Armenian-Turkey normalization, it's impossible, even if Armenian government dreams about that. But again, for reaching Armenian-Turkey normalization, you need Armenia-Azerbaijan peace treaty because President Erdogan is very clear, no Armenia-Turkey normalization without Armenia-Azerbaijan peace treaty. My understanding is that United States, after 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, tried to reach Turkey and tell them, okay, guys, let's forget 1 second about Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement. Let's start normalization with Armenia, even with a symbolic gesture, like let's open the border for these citizens of third countries. Let's open border for Armenians and Turks with diplomatic passports. Why you are non-stop speaking about any normalization only after Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement? And I believe that after military takeover of Nagorno-Karabakh, probably United States sent again these messages to Turkey, like, look, now Azerbaijani flag is not only in Shushi, but in Stepanakert, and we have 0 Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. Okay, even if there will be no peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan because of enclaves, because of whatever, at least now, please start normalization process with Armenia, because from US perspective, probably even if there is no Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement, but there is a Armenia-Turkey normalization, again, this will allow Armenia to take more robust steps to move away from Russia. But for whatever reasons, and here again, many people don't understand why Erdogan is so stubborn. No, Erdogan is telling, no, guys, I don't care. There is Azerbaijani flag in Stepanakert and there are no Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. As far as there is no Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement, there could be no breakthrough in Armenia-Turkey normalization. Some experts even argue that this is something personal because the very narrow circle of President Erdogan has multi-billion business deals with Azerbaijani state companies who are connected with President Aliyev family. So probably Aliyev told Erdogan that, okay, if you are going to normalize relations with Armenia without Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement, then you will have, or we both will have personal business losses of billions of dollars. This is one of the explanations. Another explanation is that Azerbaijan using this nationalistic movement in Turkey, this MHP or MHP party of Behçali, and this is very important ally of Turkey because all electoral successes of Erdogan in the last 6 years starting from changing constitution in 2017 referendum, then being elected as a president in 2018 in 2023, Erdogan could not do this without strategic alliance with nationalists. And Turkey faces very crucial local elections in spring 2024. And Erdogan has clear goal that AKP should bring back both Ankara and Istanbul. So some people think that President Erdogan simply does not want to have problems with nationalists. That is why he cannot do anything with relations with Armenia, at least by the still until these local elections. So in any case, Turkey's position is clear. No breakthrough in Armenia-Turkey normalization without Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement, while United States position is clear. Russia down, Iran out, West in. But again, for doing this, they need Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement. They now probably understand that it's impossible to have Armenia-Turkey normalization without Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement. That is why they are very angry against Azerbaijan. But also because Azerbaijan is also important, they don't want to ruin relations with Azerbaijan. While President Aliyev is telling that, okay, guys, I understand that you are not happy, that you want both Russia down and Iran out, but I don't want that Russia and Iran believes that Azerbaijan helped you to make Russia down and Iran out. Azerbaijan will be happy that Moscow and Tehran will think that is Armenia is helping this idea of Russia down and Iran out. And as Azerbaijanis are telling, we will simply enjoy and we will take our popcorn, beer, and enjoy seeing how Armenia is fighting against Russia or how Armenia-Iranian relations are going down and down.
Of course, I think that the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace issue is kind of a red herring because there's a lot of dirt under the rug in Armenian-Turkish relations. And the Turks know that any kind of normalization, they have to deal with the genocide issue that they either want to force Armenia to ignore or to deal with somehow. Benyamin, Pashinyan keeps warning that the risk of military aggression by Azerbaijan remains high. What is the likelihood or risk at present?
I would say that at present, I mean somewhere in spring 2024, because probably in winter, I don't believe any military escalation is possible. But I think the number one threat is the issue of enclaves, especially when Prime Minister of Armenia himself is reiterating that yes, the 29,800 square kilometers of Armenian territory does not include enclaves, that yes, enclaves are part of Azerbaijan's 86,600 square kilometer of territory, which I recognized as an Azerbaijan, and that Armenia is ready even to swap, to give this, 5, 6, or 7 or 8 enclaves to Azerbaijan and receive back Artsakh, the one enclave which is in Azerbaijan. While, by the way, we never heard, at least I never heard, President Aliyev telling that yes, there is an Armenian territory currently under Azerbaijani control. Neither about enclaves nor about this 200 square kilometers of Armenia proper, which Azerbaijan occupied as a result of 2021 and 2022 incursions. While again, we have many statements by Prime Minister himself, Prime Minister of Armenia, stating that yes, these enclaves are not part of Armenia. Yes, these enclaves were part of Soviet Azerbaijan. And yes, I recognize current Azerbaijan within the borders of Soviet Azerbaijan. So the problem is here that at the end of the day, somewhere in spring 2024, Azerbaijan may repeat what it did in September 2023 against Nagorno-Karabakh. Because when Azerbaijan launched its attack against Nagorno-Karabakh in September 2023, its main justification was, okay, I am just liberating my occupied territories, which are still under Armenia's occupation. And frankly speaking, this worked, because there was no real repercussions against Azerbaijan, neither by the EU, nor by the United States, or any international organization. Because at the end of the day, all were telling that, yes, according to international law, Karabakh is Azerbaijan, and if it's Azerbaijan, there could be no two states within one state. If Karabakh is Azerbaijan, there could be no Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. If Karabakh is Azerbaijan, there could not be two armies in one state, Azerbaijani army, Nagorno-Karabakh Defense Army. So I believe that Azerbaijan has all possibilities to do the same with enclaves. Attack enclaves and then send the message to international communities that, guys, this is not attack against sovereign Armenian territory. This is not aggression against the UN member state. This is a simply military action to liberate.
And it's not like the West can do anything.
Territories.
The West cannot do anything about this.
I think nobody can do anything, or even, for example, from Russian perspective, this is a 100% excuse not to do anything, because President Putin would say what he said on Karabakh. Remember what Putin said after September 2023. He said, okay, guys, when Prime Minister Pashinyan himself recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan in October 2022 in Prague, he paved the way for the destruction of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. What can Russia do if Armenia says that Karabakh is Azerbaijan? And the same way, if Azerbaijan attacks towards the enclaves, Putin may say, but what Russia can do if Prime Minister of Armenia is telling that enclaves are Azerbaijan, so what do you want from Russia? Azerbaijan is taking back its own territories, recognized by Armenia. So my understanding is that in spring 2024, there are strong probabilities that Azerbaijan will try to take back enclaves, or at least part of enclaves, by force.
I'm going to move a little bit to some of the diplomacy that's been going on in the West, Benyamin. Over the past week, Ararat Mirzoyan was in Skopje, North Macedonia, for an OSCE meeting. He met with Blinken, Lavrov, Josep Borrell, and many foreign ministers from EU countries. He did not meet with Azerbaijan's Ceyhun Bayramov, who was also attending. Meanwhile, Armen Grigoryan is currently in Washington, D.C. What did Mirzoyan achieve in Skopje, and what is Grigoryan's mission or goals in D.C.?
I'm not sure what Mirzoyan achieved in Skopje, but my understanding is that Armenian government is also confused, because I believe they hoped that after solving the Nagorno-Karabakh issue, whatever the solving means, then yes, there will be Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement, then Armenia-Turkey normalization, all borders will be open, there will be more trade, even some investment from Turkey, the living standards of people in Armenia will increase, and somehow they will tell population, yes, it's terrible, we lost Nagorno-Karabakh, we lost part of our homeland, this is really terrible, but at the end of the day, now we have more or less prosperous and secure future, we have peace agreement with Azerbaijan, we have normalized relation with Turkey, there is no threat of military escalation, and you are living much better now, so somehow this is terrible, of course, to lose part of your homeland, but at least maybe strategically, if there will be a peaceful and prosperous Armenia for next 25 years, and you will live much better off, and you will earn much more money, then probably this was not a terrible deal. And they hope that after this, probably the people will vote for them for next elections and next election. Let's not forget that according to our constitution, there is no term limit for prime minister. And if your party wins, you can be elected prime minister 10 times and rule for 50 years, in theory at least. Now, but it appears that there is no Nagorno-Karabakh, but there is no peace agreement with Azerbaijan, there is no Armenian-Turkey normalization, there is no peace, and there is no security. There is a growing threat of new Azerbaijani attacks against enclaves. There are tense relations with Russia, because Armenia opted for Western platforms. So relations with Russia are complicated. The threat of Azerbaijani aggression is quite high. No normalization with Turkey. And now Armenian government tries to understand what to do. And my feeling is that now they are knocking the Western doors, like EU and the United States, telling that, okay, guys, can you explain what the hell is going on? And please tell us what we can do now.
Well,
okay.
That's really funny, Benjamin.
There is no peace agreement with
actually my next
Azerbaijan.
question.
There is no peace agreement with Azerbaijan,
ahead.
no hope for peace agreement with Azerbaijan, even no negotiation with Azerbaijan, no normalization with Turkey, complicated relations with Russia. There is a threat of Azerbaijani attack, no hopes for opening of borders, economic recovery or economic growth. And probably now they're also telling the West, okay, at least give us some money, because we should tell our people that, okay, maybe there is no prospect for peace and prosperity, but at least there are European investments, I don't know, like the development, maybe loans for small and medium enterprises, maybe.
So is there any kind of a strategy to what Armenia is doing as far as diplomacy goes, or is it just basically being international beggars?
I think the strategy probably was to normalize relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey by any price, including the de facto loss of Nagorno-Karabakh. And somehow there were hopes that really after Nagorno-Karabakh chapter is closed, then it will be possible, or there are high possibility to have peace with Azerbaijan and normalize relations with Turkey. So this was strategy. Let's normalize relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey by paying any price and probably securing the long-term future of Armenia. But this strategy apparently failed. We lost Nagorno-Karabakh, but there are few hopes, if any, for any normalization with Azerbaijan, security, and a normal relation with Turkey. Now, and also there are the problems that you deteriorated relations with Russia. And unfortunately, maybe for Armenian government, Ukraine counteroffensive did not destroy Russian army in summer 2023, because I don't exclude that Armenian government hoped, as many in the West, that in summer 2023, Ukraine army will reach Crimea, or at least will reach Mariupol. The Azov Sea will cut this land bridge from Rostov via Donetsk to Crimea. This will significantly weaken Russia, and because Russia will be significantly weakened, then problem with Russia will have no significant negative impact for Armenia, because Russia will have to deal with domestic problems, internal problems, etc. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, the Ukrainian counteroffensive failed, completely failed. Now Russian military has an initiative. Yes, they did not take much territory, but initiative is on Russian hands. And now there are a lot of discussions that in spring there will be major offensives this time of Russian army. So we not only have complicated relations with Russia, but also we do not have weakened Russia, humiliated Russia with Ukrainian flags in Crimea and Mr. Putin committing suicide. All this makes situation of Armenia very complicated. Now you have to deal with Russia, but you have complicated relations. You boycotted CIS summit, CSTO summit. Okay, probably you have to go to Eurasian Economic Union summit, but how you will be received there, nobody knows. Azerbaijan threatens to attack Armenia. There is a no normalization with Turkey. So I think there is a confusion in Armenia, like what to do. And then maybe they're asking questions to the West, like what we should do now.
Benjamin, you mentioned the problems with Russia. As we know, the relations are very icy. You mentioned yourself a lot about it. I also have to bring up some statements from NATO in terms of improving relations with Armenia and sort of the inexplicable pro-Western stance or anti-Russian stance by the Armenian government. But in the latest salvo of this back and forth, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of Armenian freight trucks stuck in the border between Georgia and Russia in the area of Lars, in the border checkpoint there. It appears that Russia has conducted an inordinate amount of safety checks and has found issues with Armenian products, and therefore has banned categories of Armenian products from entering, or at least is imposing stricter inspection of those, causing huge delays and effectively a blockade, or effectively inability to ship stuff there. Do you think this is related to the geopolitical problems between Armenia and Russia? And do you think that, what other tools does Russia have? Do you think these problems will only increase, if so?
Well, I believe that this is a very mild, I would even use very gentle warning sign from Russia. What can happen with Armenia if Armenia will continue this anti-Russian rhetoric and symbolic gestures? And also,
let me just highlight that Armenia's 50% of Armenia's exports, more than 50%, go to Russia.
Yes,
it's funny because some of the like pro-Western minded friends of mine, I was in this chat between high-tech people, and one of them said, we need to find better partners, more serious partners. And I'm just saying, how are you going to find partners for tomatoes, which are heavily subsidized by Turkey, which EU has thousands of standards against, if you can't even pass Russian standards? It just, I mean, is it possible for Armenia, while you're answering, sorry for interrupting, but is it possible for Armenia to actually find markets? And even the advisor to Pashinyan, Arayik Harutyunyan, basically put out a Facebook post saying the best advice we can give to Armenian exporters is to find better markets elsewhere. I mean,
he also gave advice to the diaspora that we need to buy more Armenian products.
Okay, first of all, for diaspora Armenians to buy more Armenian products, the more Armenian products should appear in US or in Europe, because apparently I don't think that there was something about Middle East, because in Middle East, unfortunately, the communities are dwindling more and more. But I'm not an economist, but I know that finding a new markets, especially in this very competitive world, it requires time, like years and years. It requires huge investments, marketing, etc., etc. So this is a process. First, not everyone can find new markets, and second, this will take years and years and requires huge of investments. So this is my basic understanding of current world economy. Second, as I mentioned, I believe this is a very gentle push by Russia, that what Armenia may face if continues its anti-Russian rhetoric and symbolic gestures. And of course, if Armenia will take re-elections, For example, if Prime Minister will not go to Moscow to assume the presidency of Eurasian Economic Union in December 2023, or if Armenia will start some real protest from withdrawing of CSTO or withdrawing of Eurasian Economic Union or whatever else, then of course Russia has much more options to pressure Armenia. As one of the experts stated very recently, and I agree with him, that maybe Russia is not a good friend for whatever reasons, but definitely Russia could be a terrible enemy. And just look at the recent history of Georgia and current tragedy which is going on Ukraine, and you will understand what does it mean to have enemy as Russia, and especially what it may mean for Armenia, who has already enemies like Azerbaijan and Turkey. Let's not forget that Armenia's population is 3 billion, Turkey is 85 million, Azerbaijan's real population maybe is 8 million. Okay, officially is 10, but some independent sources are arguing that no more than 8. So, okay, we have huge problems with 8 million Azerbaijan, with 85 million Turkey. And now if anyone thinks that it will add to this list 140 million Russia, and it will make Armenia happier or more secure or more economically competitive or whatever else, okay, I don't understand this type of analysis.
Okay, given what we're seeing now, given what's going on, and given what you're stating in terms of the West's limitations in terms of what they can do in Armenia, and the dangers of having Russia as an enemy instead of maybe a weak friend, is there a pathway to improving things, at least so that we don't have to face Russia as an enemy? What can be done in this area? Does it require, a completely new start from a new government, or what would you advise to anyone, who's thinking about or listening to you right now?
I would recall my recent paper, I think I published it in late October 2023, that Armenia should not replace diversification of foreign policy with anti-Russian rhetoric or anti-Russian hype. Because diversification is really needed. Look, the current security architecture in South Caucasus is completely different from what we had like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And definitely any country, including Armenia, should adapt to these new geopolitical realities, and adaptation means also diversification. But again, the problem is that some people understand that when someone says, okay, Armenia should diversify its foreign policy, it means Armenia should become anti-Russia, Armenia should join democracies to fight against authoritarianism, I don't know, to fight against authoritarian Iran, authoritarian Russia, maybe even 1.5 billion authoritarian China, and etc., etc. I would say that don't confuse two completely different things. More diversified foreign policy does not mean anti-Russian policy and should not mean anti-Russian policy. No one needs to invent the bicycle again. Look, what is Georgia doing? Georgia has association agreement with European Union, and just recently European Commission recommended European Council to give candidate status to Georgia. Simultaneously, Georgia has a free trade agreement with China, and in summer 2023, Georgia signed a strategic partnership with China. Plus, Georgia has a very good partnership with NATO. Georgia has NATO training center. Georgia has NATO-Georgia separate commission. But also, Georgia has very good economic relations with Russia. Georgia did not join anti-Russian sanctions. Georgia and Russia restored their direct flights very recently. Again, don't want to look to Georgia, look to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has more or less good relation with the West. Yes, now they're a little bit angry that Azerbaijan tricked them, and after finishing Nagorno-Karabakh, did not sign peace agreement with Armenia, but still, President Aliyev and Azerbaijanis are hosts in the European Union countries. Azerbaijan is selling gas and oil and receiving billions and billions of euros. And after recent call between President Aliyev and Secretary Blinken, the Assistant Secretary of Europe and Eurasia, O'Brien, will visit Azerbaijan in December 2023. Also, Azerbaijan has, I would say, friendly relations with Russia. So probably Azerbaijan has problem with Iran, but as I mentioned, even with Iran, Azerbaijan is trying to do something. So both Georgia and Azerbaijan, while diversifying their foreign policy in different ways, they are trying to avoid to be anti-anyone. Okay, maybe we can say Azerbaijan is anti-France, but France is an individual country, is not a top player in South Caucasus as a country. So why Armenia should be against Russia while diversifying its foreign policy? So my advice will be yes, diversification is needed, but also the rhetoric is important. So I would advise people in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our ambassadors, repeat this message. Yes, Armenia is diversifying its foreign policy. Why? Because the geopolitics of South Caucasus have undergone through fundamental changes in last years. The security architecture of region has gone through fundamental changes in last years. We should adapt, and diversification is a mean of adaptation. But diversification does not mean anti-Russian policy. Effectively, it does not mean anti-anyone policy. We don't want and we should not be anti-Russia, anti-US, anti-EU, or etc., etc., etc. And also, we should not be pro-Russia, pro-US, pro-Iran, pro-China, pro-India. I would say Armenia should be pro-survival. So the motto of Armenia's foreign policy should be pro-survival and diversification, pro-survival. I would disseminate these two core messages. Diversification, pro-survival, not anti-anything.
All right. Let's wrap our topics here. I'd like to ask each of you if there's something on your minds this past week or 2 weeks, because we've been away for a couple of weeks, that you would like to share with us. Benyamin, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Okay, I think that despite all this mess and negative news, also we should take into account into good news. I'm not a specialist on space or on satellite, but I saw the news that first Armenia assembled or Armenia made satellite went to space, I think by an American SpaceX company, Falcon. As far as I know, this is Elon Musk company, probably this SpaceX, if I'm not mistaken. This proves that despite all this mess, still intellectually Armenian nation is capable, and which means that not everything is lost.
Okay. Hovik, any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I just, recently I just did a Twitter post about that. So it feels weird saying that, but I think that in reality, Armenia should set its goals, much higher. I think that we do have intellectual capacity, but the intellectual capacity required to run this, it's a CubeSat. It requires at most, again, depending on the payload, maybe from 100,000 to $1 million. So yes, I understand that this is a progress, but is it the kind that should be amplified by national media to the point of, I'm sorry, to nausea? I think that when it's too hyped too much, it can be counterproductive. I mean, I think Armenia should have its own space program, but calling $1 million investment a great achievement, given that, especially if our competitors in the region, let's just take Azerbaijan, it has 2 or 3, if I forget. I mean, 2 probably and 1 in planning. And each of these satellites that it launched cost 100 million and over that. So we still have a long way to go. But I don't want to be very negative. It's just that, we also have to be, on this show, we like to be pragmatic or a realist. And having some understanding of the technology involved, I'm a computer science person myself, not an aerospace engineer, but it's just an issue of, investment. It'd be great if this produced some great results, but frankly, I'm waiting for the $100 million satellite that has like very nice optics on it and very nice communication equipment that can give Armenia both a great strategic advantage in military and economic and all other areas. So we're a long way off, but good start, I guess.
Hovik, did you have any technical specs about the satellite that was launched?
I mean, it's a standard CubeSat launched by SpaceX. And I believe they have a standard size. It's a 3U size, or it can be 1U. I forget. I don't know which one they opted for, but literally the cost is there is a price for the satellite itself, and there's a price for launching it based on the weight of the payload. And the price just for the launch starts like in 25,000 range or something. I don't want to quote the exact number, but it's in the order. It's in that ballpark.
Yeah, what I know about the satellite is basically about 10 centimeters cubed, so it can't be that heavy. But the emphasis was on it was Armenian designed by Armenian scientists.
So it was an Armenian company. It was an Armenian startup. Good for Bazumk is the name of the startup. Mm-hmm. Good for them. But once something like that gets amplified and gets, it's made into like Armenia launching its own equivalent of Sputnik, Yuri Gagarin, and so forth. That's when I start throwing up. I'm sorry. This is there should be a limit in terms of how much you can hype news like that. So,
all right. Thank you both for your thoughts. Those were great. We'll leave it there for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always.
We've been talking to Dr. Benyamin Poghosyan, who is a senior fellow at APRI Armenia, a Yerevan-based think tank, and the chairman of the Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. All right, that was our show. Please find us on social media and follow us: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and your favorite podcast platforms. Links are in the show notes. We'll talk to you next week.